So the Dutch Grand Prix, despite being a horrible track for racing, which is why it's being banished off the calendar and hopefully never seen again, actually did provide an entertaining race this year. Maybe not with on-track action, but with tyre strategy and just a lot of different stories up and down the grid. So I'd like to go over the winners and the losers of this race in this video, which can range from teams to individual drivers. So let's start with the main winner, which is pretty obvious, and that's Lando Norris. He had a pretty commanding drive where he got pole position in the race, and he did lose at the start, but then he managed to regain it back through a decent strategy from McLaren, to be fair. And when he was in front, he didn't look like he was going to relinquish the lead. And this is a very good step for McLaren and also Lando Norris, because it means they've brought a car that can now compete at the front regularly, as it did in Hungary. Now, I think it is too late for them to mount a legitimate title charge, which I've seen some people say they can do, because I think Antonelli and Mercedes are still too competitive for them to make a lot of points differences. But obviously, if Ferrari's upgrade in Monza works and maybe Red Bull get a bit closer, then it's all to play for, really, if Mercedes don't bring any meaningful upgrades in the meantime as well. Overall, a very good race for Lando Norris. Now, one of the losers of the race is Ferrari. Now, they came into the weekend with a fair bit of hope, I think. It's not a track where power is the most important thing, because there's obviously a very windy middle sector with a lot of long radius corners and medium to high speed, which is where their car's meant to excel. Now, in the sprint race and in sprint qualifying, they did okay. They were pretty close to pole, but in the end, they couldn't really convert it into a win. Obviously, Leclerc got second in the end, and maybe with some more laps could have got the win. And in the main qualifying, they were like 3/10 back. They weren't really that close. And in the race, they had very good pace, and maybe they could have challenged for the win if they started higher. But overall, once again, their qualifying made it hard for them. Now, I think because of the lack of power they've got and the rear issue they've got, where they haven't got the best traction, I think it's making it hard for them to be able to work the soft tyres in the qualifying sessions, and it's really costing them on race day when they do have decent race pace. It's kind of like the 2024 Ferrari again, which was the exact same story. At COTA 2024, they weren't really that close to pole in qualifying, but as soon as Charles Leclerc got the lead, he didn't relinquish it and managed to win the race. So they need to hope that their engine upgrade coming at Monza can actually help make a meaningful difference and maybe propel them up the front a bit more. Now, another one of the winners was Liam Lawson. Now, I did a video a few days ago saying how Liam Lawson was in trouble, and while I still think he is, I think he solidified his position a bit more with that drive. Now, I don't think it was a drive that was anything particularly special, because I think Verstappen, if he did manage to not crash, probably would have got more out the car. But the point is that Liam Lawson wasn't the one to crash. And I think if you saw, when everyone saw that Red Bull spinning at the back, I think we all assumed it was Liam Lawson at first, until we saw it was Max Verstappen. So he managed to put together a pretty clean weekend. Obviously, the sprint qualifying and the sprint race wasn't the best for him, but I think at that point he was still probably adapting to the car, and maybe the energy strategy wasn't final yet, so he was still adapting to that. But when it came to the big points sessions, he did a really good job. Now, do I think he's going to be safe for next year? I don't think it changed too much. Maybe if Hajar's out next weekend again and they give him another go, he could be a bit closer and he could maybe have a bit more safety in the seat. But I don't think this weekend really changed too much for him. Now, another one of the losers is Williams' budget, and this comes in twofold. Not only is the guy they've just signed for a 30 million a year contract out in Q1 and getting out qualified by his teammate, but he's also then driving into other people's cars, including his own teammates, and basically destroying their cars and costing them money. Now, for some reason, the race did a video last week saying you're wrong about Carlos Sainz, and that must have been the worst time PR piece which his camp paid for ever, because this weekend he had an absolute stinker after renewing his contract. I think the Williams budget is one of the big losers this weekend, and on every winners and losers video for however many years he signed up for, I could probably put them as a loser, because I just got no clue why they've spent that amount of money on him. Now, one of the winners of the weekend was Aston Martin. Now, they brought a new engine upgrade this weekend, and when it came to the sprint, qualifying the sprint, it looked like same old. Honda promising some amazing big upgrade that was going to propel them to the front, and then under delivering. All the smiles of the Honda crew on Friday quickly disappeared when they were out in Q1 again, and in the sprint they didn't look to be doing much. But when it came to main qualifying, they were still out in Q1. It wasn't as horrific. They were a bit closer to the relegation zone, and I think they did have a chance of Q2. I don't think Alonso and Stroll probably got the most out of the car, but when it came to the race, Alonso really delivered with a solid drive from I think P18 to P9, which is obviously nothing like that's happened for them this season. And I've seen videos online of when Alonso was battling the Williams, and you could just see how much more traction it had. It was just on all the straights, it would lose all the time. So I think as long as they keep upgrading this engine and adding a bit more horsepower to it, I do think they're going to end up as probably decent midfielders, I think probably ahead of Audi and, maybe a bit closer to the front, but I don't think they can make a big step until probably maybe mid next year, or whenever Honda actually bring a meaningful upgrade instead of joking around on Friday about not asking them questions about the upgraded horsepower. Now, another big loser this weekend, I think, is Piastri. Now, Piastri with these low grip cars is someone I expected to really struggle, because last year when we went to tracks like Kota and Mexico, where the grip is noticeably lower, he really struggled and was miles off Norris. And this year, all the tracks are essentially like that with the lower downforce cars, and it's really reflecting. He was a whopping 32 seconds behind Norris and just did not look like he was going to challenge at all. Now, I partly do blame the McLaren strategy, so I got no idea why the hell he was put on hard tyres to start and then they boxed him so early, but that just seems to be the classic McLaren strategy these days, just not knowing what the hell they're doing and doing some random BS which never actually works out. But he didn't have the race pace, and that was clear to see, because he was getting nowhere near them even towards the end of the hard stint, when you would think that Norris and Antonelli's tyres should have been running out a bit. And he was just a clear roadblock for the Ferraris as well. Leclerc passed him in a few laps, as did Hamilton, and he was just dropping back and back and back. It reminded me of Spain a little bit, where he was just absolutely nowhere. And the post-race interview really confirmed this. He looked like a broken man. He did not really have any answers for the current form right now. And I think he knows as well that finding that form he had early last year is never going to happen again, because he's never going to drive cars that grippy, and he's never going to drive a car that protects the tyre so well, because that was one of the main things of the McLaren last year, was being able to protect the tyre so well. So that was one of Piastri's main weaknesses kind of gone. But this year, it's really clear to see again. I don't know where really he goes from here. I did a video on him a few weeks ago. If you want to go and watch that, it'll be in the top right now, which kind of details his situation, where what I think he needs to do next in his career. But the point is, he's not going to be fast with these cars, not now, not next year, not ever, I don't think. And it probably doesn't inspire much confidence for him that the next cars are going to be V8 cars, probably very on the nose, low grip again. I don't think he's going to have a very fun rest of his career, potentially. The ground felt cars, particularly last year, were literally a perfect fit for him. So I just got no clue where he goes from here. Now, another winner from the race was Esteban Ocon. Now, for the last however many months, and probably the last year, the only question that people have asked about Ocon is when they're going to announce he's leaving. I mean, even I asked that question a few months ago on this channel. I'm not going to tell you to go and watch that video, because I really don't like the quality of it, so don't do that. But this weekend, and actually last weekend, he's had a really good time. He's 2 or 3 tenths ahead of Behrman, which is very impressive when you consider how well he's done for the last year. And he was putting together a solid stint, but then for some reason Haas pitted him into traffic and he just lost all the time, which seems to be the classic Haas strategy, which he got given a lot last year, is start on hards and go as long as possible, and it just never works out. But when it comes to his own personal performance, I really do think he's having a decent time recently. I don't know if he's had a bit of a breakthrough with how the Haas or Ferrari engine drives, and if he's finding time out of it, or if it's maybe more Behrman underperforming, and these kind of questions about the quality of parts that Haas are bringing and how both cars aren't really the same. But he's doing a great job himself. He's putting it all together, and I think pressure around him is probably gonna stop a bit if he can continue putting together these decent performances. And there's been a bit less talk recently actually about who might be on the sidelines waiting to replace him. I know Kamara was kind of the main one who people thought was going to replace him, who I thought was going to replace him in my driver predictions videos. Again, go and watch that. But there has not been much talk about that recently. And then there was suddenly talks about Fornaroli, or even one of the other Haas reserve drivers. But the talks have calmed down a bit. So I do wonder if for now he's safe and they're just looking to continue with him. Because really, another one of the losers could be Haas, because they've just not got the budget to bring any meaningful changes to the car. And it's really showing. They're kind of nowhere at the moment. Slow AF, no answers, and Gene Haas just refusing to put any money in the team. So they're looking to have a pretty tough time, I think. And now the final loser for me is Audi. Now, I think Audi had a good car this weekend. I think the ones who didn't deliver with the drivers. And I've shared that opinion for a while, that I don't think the drives at Audi are that impressive. I think Hülkenberg had his time, and I just don't think he's really anything special now. It's certainly in qualifying. Since last year, he's been awful. He's really not getting the most out of the car on a single lap. And while he did get P8, he made his life a lot harder for himself. It should have been an easy P8. It shouldn't have been a fight for P8. And Bortoleto, obviously, had a very good qualifying, then just had a stinker in the race. Spun at the start and ended up almost in the wall, luckily saved it, and then just kept dropping positions and dropping like a stone. So I really think Audi are the losers this weekend. I think P8 and P9 could have easily been on the cards for them. And with a car that is very good in the corners and not so good on the straights, they really do need to take advantage of these opportunities, because I think Monza is going to be pretty painful for them. Now, the final loser, not going back to a winner, final loser is Max Verstappen, and I don't really think I need to explain it. crashed at the start on his own accord, final race in front of his home fans. Really not the best weekend for him, but we'll see what happens at the next weekend, because Hungary was a great drive, but there's no excuses. That was a rookie error yesterday. So thank you for watching. If you did enjoy the video, please subscribe. I'm at about 40 subs now. My Liam Lawson video did quite well, actually. I got like 10 subscribers in one night, which is pretty massive for my channel. So if you want to contribute, please subscribe, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video.